Hey, and welcome to another episode of Digital Noir Presents. I'm your host, Sam Davies. I've got Nicholas Bozic with me here today.
Hi, Sam.
Christopher William Mabs.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thanks. What's been happening, guys?
I've been home alone because my family's away.
Ooh,
That's sad. Do you miss them?
Yes, I do.
they've only been away a couple of days.
Or are you
too.
enjoying the freedom?
Nah, it's been a week or so.
Really?
Yeah.
Already?
Yeah.
To Thailand?
Yeah.
Wow, that's gone quickly.
Yeah, so I'm just a big slob. I just don't clean up and do
Sounds
whatever
like
I
fun
want.
there. You went to the movies, went rock climbing.
Yeah.
He was
You
eating
did some stuff.
Nutella and bread at about 4 o'clock this afternoon.
Oh, jeez. Thanks for taking a downhill
Second
turn.
time you brought that up.
And then came in and said he's losing weight.
Okay.
It's a very small snack.
Well, yeah. Well, if you only eat it once a day and that's all you eat.
Yeah, true.
Exactly. So we've got another episode from Pause Fest this week.
Yeah, exciting. We've got Leah Callum Butler from Intimate.
Oh, finally.
Yeah. It took a little while.
Yes.
It took a minute.
We may have had 3 or 4 attempts at this chat.
How many times was
Yes.
it? At least 3 times we attempted
But
to.
she's a jet setter, right? So she's based in the Philippines, and I think she was in Portugal one time. We tried to chat with her in
Yeah.
London.
Yeah, and she
so
had like terrible Wi-Fi, I think, so she had good excuses.
we'll give her the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
It was actually a really, really good chat. She's so I saw her speak at Pause Fest 2 years ago.
Mhm.
So she's a co-founder and one of the directors of a company called Intimate, which is a token for the adult industry. So blockchain,
Crypto.
Cryptocurrency, yeah.
blockchain technology. And it's a really interesting use case for the technology, and I think it actually makes a lot of sense. Her first talk was sort of one of the first times I was like, right, this makes practical sense in the real world. So we had a massive chat talking about all things from security to GDPR and
Yeah.
crypto and a bunch of other bits and pieces in between.
Oh, cool. I heard you bought something as well. with
I may
crypto.
have bought something.
You bought
with
some?
crypto.
Oh, nice.
I wonder what it was.
We can release the photos maybe. This podcast is going out with an interview for them that I did yesterday. So thanks again to Pause Fest for having us out. We had an awesome time, didn't we, Nick?
Oh, yeah, for sure. A lot of interesting chats.
Yeah, and we'll be releasing more of them over the next couple of weeks. So if you enjoy this chat, please tune back in. There'll be plenty more from Pause Fest.
Nice.
Let's jump in and have a chat with Leah.
Boom.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think we've been doing this dance for a while, actually. I'm excited.
It has been a little bit of a dance.
Fine. Well, it's totally my fault. Totally my fault. But I'm very excited to finally be here.
But you've been, it's been, so last year I saw you talk here at Pause Fest.
Oh, thank you for coming.
It was very good. And what I found really interesting was, I think it was the first time that I'd seen a really clear and logical application of blockchain and crypto, and I suppose the transactional side of it, and the trust side of it, sort of laid out. I think a lot of people still are sort of mystified by what blockchain is and what crypto is. Just give me a quick rundown of Intimate and how it's using that technology.
Well, I've got to admit, Intimate was not the first practical use case that I came across for blockchain.
Cool.
I actually got into the space because I have a background working in renewable energy.
Okay.
And a mentor of mine, who's from Melbourne actually, he introduced me to a project called the Brooklyn Microgrid,
Okay.
which was by Consensus, LO3 Energy and Transgrid. And it was the first time they ever traded energy peer-to-peer on the blockchain.
Yeah, cool. I have heard of that, yeah.
Yeah, so this idea of neighbors being able to create their own solar energy and sell it at whatever price they stake it at to their neighbors, it blew my mind because previously this was just completely impossible. The energy grid was controlled by the infrastructure providers and the power creators.
Yep.
So it took me a long time to get my head around it, to be honest. It kind of seemed too good to be true, like this magical technology that wasn't really real. But when I started to understand it a bit more, I kind of got obsessed with this idea that, decentralization could completely transform the way we do business, the way we live our lives, the way we trust each other, really. Because everything we do these days is reliant on trusted intermediaries to process transactions for us.
Yep.
If I want to send money to you, I need a bank. If I want to buy a house, I need a mortgage broker. We've got all these people who sit in the middle. Anyway, obviously there were lots of people excited about blockchain. I felt like they were kind of applying it to anything and everything. And I got obsessed with this idea that blockchain was such an early stage technology that it was kind of crying out for the perfect use case. And
Yep.
obviously I loved the energy trading thing, but there are already very cool projects like Power Ledger in Australia
Yeah, Power Ledger is really interesting.
working on it.
Yep.
It's like, what else? There's got to be something else. And I come from a social impact background, so
Okay.
I'm kind of always looking for projects that can not only be profitable and scalable, but really improve people's lives.
Yep.
And I happened to meet my co-founder, Ruben Copper. And that was in like October 2017.
Okay.
Yeah, and he actually introduced the first Bitcoin ATMs into Australia in 2014.
Okay.
And he'd also started an app called Rendezvous many years later, which was bringing safety and security to the escort industry, because he'd noticed that there was a real problem with escorts being able to tee up with clients, and it was mainly centered around payments.
Yep.
Like the whole industry was based on cash.
Cash, yeah.
Because no one wants to give their credit card details to an escort or put it into a dodgy porn site even. So anyway, kind of long story short, going off on a tangent, but he kind of saw that crypto and adult had a lot of the same problems. They were both stigmatized. They both were struggling to kind of break into mainstream. They both had issues with payments. And kind of ironically, they could solve each other's problems. I had no background in the adult industry, so I really knew nothing about it. But when I started to delve into that space, I saw that, you know, if you took the adult label off it,
Yeah.
it was purely an industry that was struggling to access some of the most basic B2B and merchant services in order to do basic, efficient business because of moral guidelines.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that's bullshit. Like, we're talking legal, tax-paying, legitimate entities that can't get PayPal to work with them or open a bank account. And I was like, what? Why is nobody clamoring to fix this problem?
And I found that really interesting that you've got banks that there's no technical clause here saying we can't work with you. It's just based down to essentially their moral viewpoint or, you know, whatever their worldview is.
Well, yeah, some of them do actually have, you know, a physical
clauses in
clause.
there? Really?
Yeah, it's a morality clause,
Yeah.
and it applies to other sort of.
Is that a grey area though?
Well, it's not really. I mean, people, they lay down the line on it, and it's not just us. It's not just adult. It's cannabis,
Yeah,
gambling, sometimes alcohol.
Yep.
Depends on the entities that own these businesses.
Yeah.
But it goes a little bit further than that too. So it's not. A lot of people like to go, oh, you know, you're just archaic and stuck in the old ages. But there are problems in payments in the adult industry. For example, chargebacks.
Yep.
So anyone who doesn't know what a chargeback is, it's like, I've just bought some porn, but my husband's just seen it. He's like, what is this thing on your credit card statement? And I'm like, oh my God, I would never buy that filthy, disgusting material. I'm going to call the bank and have them reverse it immediately.
Okay.
Massive problem,
Yeah,
chargeback
okay,
fraud.
sure.
They call it friendly fraud because, you know, it's not necessarily criminals. It's people just with
Yeah.
buyer's remorse.
Yep.
But the interesting thing is that this is such a massive problem for adult merchants because think about it, they already struggle with their relationships with payment processors and banks.
Yeah. Add that on top.
So they have to go to these peripheral service providers who charge them exorbitant fees
Yeah.
because they class them as high risk. And then if you get 10 people complaining of a chargeback in a month, they go, wow, you're even more high risk. I'm going to up your interest rates
Yeah,
again.
right.
So for the merchants, if push came to shove, they'd be quite happy to just give the client a refund.
Yeah.
They don't want them complaining to their payments and finance service providers.
Sure. Yeah.
So it is real and perceived. Like, chargebacks are a problem, but a cool thing about blockchain is because we're cutting out the trusted intermediary, you
Yep.
don't need a bank to facilitate the transaction, suddenly chargebacks aren't a thing anymore. So, for example, in crypto, it's a push transaction. I have to authorize it in order for it to happen.
Yep.
You can't just pull it out of my account upon your authorization like you would with a credit card.
Yep.
So suddenly, like, if I buy some, whatever, I don't know, I book an escort or buy a vibrator and suddenly someone finds me out and I really want a refund,
Yeah.
I go directly to you.
Yeah. You don't have to talk to that intermediary.
Exactly. And if you want to give me that refund because it's like, oh, you know, you're a pretty good customer and we'll let you off this one time, then the choice is up to you. And I think that's where it becomes really important because we want to be able to empower our merchants to make their own decision
Yep.
rather than being at the mercy of these financial providers.
Yeah, sure. It's sort of held hostage in some situations.
Yeah, but like not in a cool BDSM way.
No, not at all. In a horrible, old school banking way. So that's the sort of transactional side of things. But then there's this whole other layer, I suppose, of trust and authenticity in terms of your personal credentials that comes into Intimate.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, there's currently a massive trade-off in adult because most people want to be able to have some level of privacy
Yep.
when they're accessing these kind of products and services. A lot of people say to me, oh, like, why are you trying to protect sleazy guys who are just getting sleazy products and they don't want their wife to know about it? I think privacy is important to everyone for a whole range of different reasons, and I support it in every instance. But you've also got to think, like, what if it's someone who is struggling with their sexual identity
Yeah, sure.
and they want to buy their first gay toy or interact with the LGBTI community without having to have their parents at home known or everyone in the office? Or what if it's a young woman who... Oh, that was loud. What if it's a young woman who's grown up in a really religious, conservative family and she wants to access advice about family planning or contraception or, buy a vibrator so she can explore her own body? I mean, people want privacy for lots of different reasons.
And I think as we sort of become more mature in this digital world around us, I think privacy is going to become bigger and bigger. Whether or not it's whether or not it's because you want to hide something or keep it discreet, I think that's just going to become more and more important to us as consumers.
At the moment, I
and
think
humans.
people think about it in the context of discretion, or like, if you want to keep something private, you've got something to hide.
Yeah,
But the fact of the matter is that it's your data.
that's right.
You own it, no one else. I mean, there's few things in the world you wouldn't just freely put your bank account details out there.
No.
So why are you doing it with your medical health records or, any other kind of data that you own? So, yeah, we think there's an opportunity here with blockchain to allow transparency and privacy to exist in parallel, which is usually kind of like a whoa, mind blown moment for most people. I know it was for me when I first started understanding
sure.
about this. But what we're interested in is this concept of pseudonymity,
Yep.
not anonymity, which is what a lot of people think about when they think about crypto and apply it to the black market and things like that.
Yep.
We're not about covering up your tracks. We want to bring this industry out of the shadows.
Yep.
But we do want people to feel that they can keep certain personas in their life
Yep.
separate. So if I'm going to, interact with the swingers community, with my partner on the weekend or whatever, that I have the freedom to be able to do that and to be completely transparent with other people on the network,
Yep.
to share with them, say, a trust measure that I've built up over time. And that might be just feedback that I've received from other people who have interacted with me. I'm very happy to share that kind of information within the community
Yep.
because it's relevant to them. But it's not relevant to the people at work. It's not relevant to, my family or my flatmates or that guy down the road.
Sure.
I should be able to switch on and off certain attributes about my identity and my reputation where and when it's relevant.
And I heard you talking yesterday about, so we have all these services we use now which have a measure of our reputation on them. So we've got Amazon and we've got Uber and we've got Airbnb and all these, review ratings of us as humans, in the transactional world, but there's no way to port them across through different mediums.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? So, if I've been using Uber for 4 years and I've got like a stellar 4.9 star rating,
Yep.
that says something about me. It says,
Definitely.
I'm not going to get in your Uber and projectile vomit all over you because I'm drunk. I'm not going to try and shoot you. I'm not going to try and rape you. I'm a relatively good driver.
Yeah.
You can trust me to get in your car with you. But if I'm going to go on my first Airbnb trip, I can't port that reputation over to Airbnb.
No.
Now, granted, they're not exactly the same instance,
No.
but, the Airbnb host who knows nothing of me has no checkpoint to be able to validate my reputation against anything else. So I really feel that that's kind of a weird situation that we're in, where we're going to all the effort to pay money for these services and interact with people and build this trust measure, as I like to call it. 'Cause
Sure.
some people hate the word reputation. They kind of associate it with like Black Mirror or Chinese government stuff, which is fine, but I'm clearly not trying to
Yeah.
build that sort of stuff. It's more about like how do I decide if I can actually trust someone? I don't care if they're popular or cool or pretty. I just want to know they're trustworthy. So I really believe that you should be able to port your trust measure across different products and services if you've built it yourself.
In a secure environment where that, so it's interesting that parallel between what's happening in China and India, I believe, where sort of a nation state's trying to build, reputation measure on their
Yeah.
civilian base. which becomes, extremely scary in the wrong hands. But then on the flip side, if you own that data, if that's yours to willingly share where you want, then I think that's a great thing, and that does allow you to sort of move through the digital world and outside it, really. With I suppose, like you said, a certain level of transparency, but also anonymity when you need it.
Yeah, this is such an evolving conversation, and I think it's kind of happening in different little pods of society. So I hear lots of different things. People are aware of the benefits of the reputation system embedded within Uber and Airbnb.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't that long ago that if I said to you, I'm going to go jump in a stranger's car or stay in a stranger's house, you'd be like, what?
Yeah.
No way. But now we think nothing of it. I mean, stranger danger is a thing of the past because we can assess the trustworthiness of someone we've never met before. But then at the same time, we never hear people mention that it is a reputation system that is defining these things, and it is.
Of course.
But then we see these horror things about, what we're seeing play out in China, what we've seen on Black Mirror.
Yeah.
And I think people associate these reputation algorithms with only being used against us. I think I actually encourage that. I think in order to build ethical systems that actually improve people's lives and not exploit them, we should be coming at it from a very highly analytical and critical approach.
Yeah.
And
pessimistic
even,
to an extent.
well, yeah, even a healthy level of skepticism about, what could go wrong here? What are we designing? What is the future going to look like if we implement these systems?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm not seeing that with things like the My Health opt-out in Australia. I saw so many people go, I don't know why I have to opt out. Like, I think it's good if the government has my information. It's going to improve interoperability, and it's going to improve my life and make it easier for me to get access to healthcare if I need it in an emergency situation.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's fine, and I agree with all those benefits there, but perhaps the system that's been designed is not the right one.
Yeah.
We should be looking at how these systems are designed, how they benefit us, and is the data ultimately owned and controlled by us? That's my problem with the My Health scheme, because
100%.
it's not owned
And
by
the
you.
Australian government built it.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a key flag, red flag. But we should be coming at it for systems like that. We should be coming at it with that healthy level of skepticism. How could this be used for me? But how could it be used against me? And let's weigh up both sides.
It's an education piece as well, and I think we've been thrust in the last 10 years into this sort of smartphone and all of our data sort of all our lives being spent online essentially. I think the public sort of consensus or consciousness better of understanding like what's happening with our data and where it's going, it's very, very low, right? So you have something like Cambridge Analytica or a Facebook breach where people get a taste of it, and it's very skewed by the media and not really reported very well, I don't think. So people have sort of as they do, sort of this very black and white view of their data and what's happening with it. But I think as digital citizens, we're going to need to get more savvy about what we're doing with our data, who's got it, where we're happy for it, an organization or a company or a nation state to have it, and where we're not, and actually what control we have. So the stuff that's happening in Europe is interesting. I think that's sort of GDPR is a step there, but it's still a long way to go, I think.
Well, yeah, and I'm actually really grateful. I mean, I'm not grateful for Cambridge Analytica. That was a terrible, terrible scandal. But I'm really grateful for the fact that people are thinking about this now. Like, what does it mean to me? Prior to that stage, people were kind of like, oh, well, if they've got my Facebook data, like, what do I really care? Like, I don't have anything to hide. But little did they know that Cambridge Analytica could exploit the data of millions of users in order to create psychographic profiles that would be able to allow them to target people on Facebook with ads and influence their behavior in the US presidential campaign. And, that's horrifying. That's Black Mirror stuff.
It is. And I mean, in Brexit, even more so. I mean, the stuff they did in the UK was intense. And I think it's, and the scary thing about it is, apart from, I suppose, them potentially using Facebook's data against the terms, it wasn't like they hacked stuff. They were literally just coming in and using technology that's freely available. And I think
the scary thing about that one was that, particularly Cambridge Analytica, was that I think it was only like 270,000 people who used the This Is Your Life API. But what they didn't realize was that through that API, they gave the people behind it the permission to access the data of their friends.
Yeah, that's right. And then when those concentric circles go out, it gets huge.
Yeah.
I was following, I think it was early last year, the story around Backpages and pages
Yep.
like that being shut down in the US. So for people that don't know, Backpages is kind of like a Gumtree or a Craigslist, but where a lot of sort of escort services were being advertised globally, and through Congress in the US, it essentially got shut down. I think around child trafficking laws was the official reason for it.
Yeah, so it happened around the implementation of FOSTA-SESTA,
Okay.
which
Yeah,
were
sure.
it's laws in the US. To just give everyone like a very quick rundown. Basically, what happened was at the dawn of the internet, there was a particular clause within the Communications Decency Act in the US, Section 230, which provided immunity to platforms that host user-generated content.
Okay.
So, your Facebooks, your Reddits, your Craigslist, all of them, your Backpages. So if people put stuff on that site that is illegal, that it's not Facebook's problem, because people realize that you're going to stunt the growth of the internet.
Yeah.
If you cap it by making platforms responsible for what people do, they're clearly just going to go, well, that's impossible to comb through all that stuff.
Yeah.
We'll just prevent people from doing it. We'll block it. So Section 230 was meant to protect them so that the internet could experience exponential growth, and it did. But there is a huge problem with sex trafficking in the world.
Sure.
What's a bigger problem is that there isn't really a thorough framework for the mainstream to kind of understand the difference between sex trafficking and consensual sex work.
Yep.
They're two very different things, but they often just get chucked in the same bucket.
Yep.
And in my opinion, what happened with FOSTA-SESTA was there was a group who had been attacking Backpage for a long time because it was known for advertising sex trafficked victims.
Okay.
But they kept losing in court because of Section 230.
Yep.
They kind of changed their tact and tried to get Section 230 removed, and they were successful.
Okay.
So what we saw in the advent of that was this knee-jerk reaction from a whole bunch of platforms who went, whoa, oh my God, like the best risk management strategy for this
Yeah.
is for us to just
Shut down.
and delete any content that has anything to do with sex work. Because how are we ever going to comb through all of
No.
that data and content and go, yep, that's a consensual sex worker, and that's a sex trafficked victim? It's impossible.
Sure.
So we saw forums on Craigslist and Reddit completely shut down. Some people had their Google Drives deleted
Wow.
without warning.
Wow.
If they had naked pictures in there. Websites were shut down.
Yep.
But Backpage was also shut down. I don't actually think that it was Backpage was a direct response to FOSTA-SESTA.
Okay.
It was kind of like a long thing that was going on. They actually, I think they got them on something like tax evasion. Don't quote me on
Yeah,
that.
sure.
But yeah, it's a huge problem, and Backpage was kind of heralded as the one. In the fallout of this, what's happened is that now consensual sex workers who are doing this profession by choice, and look, some people absolutely love their job.
Yeah.
They absolutely love being a sex worker, and they make good money, and very happy with what they do. Some people don't like their job, but everyone needs a job.
Yeah.
So
Lots of people don't like their job.
yeah, like somebody working at Woolies might not like their job, but they should still be afforded rights and protection and empowerment
Yes.
to feel safe when they go to work.
Yep.
But now, because nobody can advertise their services online, it's kind of put the industry back, more than a decade.
Yeah.
Because now people they can't safely screen their clients online.
Yep.
And it's basically put the industry back very, very far and put a lot of people in very unsafe positions, which is really scary.
I read a report, so they're running a report, I think, in SF in San Francisco around, since the sites have been shut down, since that law has come through, around increase in homicide and rape.
Yeah.
Amongst the community, and it's spiked. They can see a direct correlation between, people being literally unsafe because the inability to screen and having to go back to the street and having to go back to, pimps and different ways of sort of getting your services out there. If you don't have that direct means of controlling your own destiny, that's really scary.
It is. It's completely taking away any sense of empowerment that sex workers once had. They can't be independent. They fear for their lives. They fear for being prosecuted. And I mean, that's in the US, but globally.
Globally. No, this is, yeah.
Yeah, FOSTA-SESTA has had ripple effects across the world. I mean, just to clarify, sex work is illegal in the US. But here in Australia, in New South Wales, it's decriminalised.
Yep.
In the UK, it's decriminalised, but people are still having these same issues. And, I just think I find it very archaic and very frightening because I've spent the last year doing primary research, working with sex workers around the world to understand, what happens when you're going to see a new client? How do you decide whether they're trustworthy?
Yeah.
What do you do when something goes wrong? And I don't know if people have this idea in their head that sex workers are like junkies on the street or something like that, but there is probably the greatest spectrum of people within this industry that provide services and also access them, probably more of a kaleidoscope than any other industry in the world. And I've spent a lot of time, particularly in the UK, with sex workers who come from disadvantaged backgrounds, to understand how when we're building a trust measure, how do we build one that's going to be completely inclusive of all types of workers? So, a worker in New South Wales who charges $3,000 an hour, the kind of trust measurement system that she's going to need is very different to, say, someone over another side of the world who has a mental health issue, perhaps a physical disablement, who is from a socioeconomically disadvantaged background, who is of colour, who is trans, who is LGBTIQ. I mean, the list goes on.
Yeah.
So, there's so many different people in this space and they're really struggling with scary issues and no one's standing up for them.
So the real world application then of Intimate would be, let's say for that sex worker in the UK, is to actually be able to have someone contact them via a means of communication which is secure and be able to screen them essentially, and that could go all the way through to health records if we wanted, transaction history within the community, even outside, so you can actually get a pretty good view of who this character is. What do you call the entities? Do you call them characters or put a name to
Johns,
the
people
John.
who are accessing services.
That's essentially your digital character with a certain sense of anonymity there, but you also have building that layer of trust, and then the actual financial transaction can happen peer to peer directly with no intermediary.
So I think the really important point here is we already talked about pseudonymity so that people can kind of keep their personas separate depending on what they're doing, but I think the really important feature to build in is selective or voluntary disclosure.
Yeah.
So you might say within your pseudonym, you've built up all of these attributes. So I can, let's just say it's me. I've got this profile that I've been building for a couple of years. I've interacted with all sorts of things. I've purchased time on a webcam platform with a cam performer. I've booked escorts. I've purchased, adult novelties. I've attended BDSM parties. Clearly, I have a great life. But perhaps more importantly, I've also verified certain attributes about my identity. Yep. So I've been to, say, a third-party oracle, let's say it's Australia Post, and they've viewed my passport and said, yep, you are who you say you are. Now, that means that someone can see my pseudonym and not know who I am at home, but they know that it's a real person behind there.
Trusted in,
Yeah, and I could do the same things with my sexual health medical records to show that, I get tested every 3 months, and I've been doing that for the past 2 years. Now, all of that is my information that I've built up.
Yeah.
And if you and I are going to go on a date, you might want to see certain things about me.
Definitely.
Now, look, we've not even been on a first date yet, so I'm not going to go like, bleh, have all of my information at once.
The whole health record,
Yeah,
exactly.
we've got to build some trust first.
Yeah.
But in order to build that trust and establish it in the first place, you've got to give up something. At the moment, how do you do that? Like, you've got to go verify it against other pieces of information that give away my other personas.
That's right.
But how powerful is that? If I can show you, look, I've had my ID verified by an oracle that you and I both trust.
Yep.
I don't have to show you my ID. You might say, oh, well, I don't trust Australia Post. I want you to get it verified by Junio or something like that.
Whatever it is,
Whatever. But then we have a very, very different type of negotiation, which is far safer.
Yep.
And I think satisfies the needs of consumers and service providers and even merchants far better in order to respect our privacy, but allow us to have that sense of trust at the same time.
Going back to what you were saying before, I suppose, about there being this. So with My Health, a lot of Aussies, I think a lot of people go, well, that data should be publicly available, or not. It's no problem to be out there, right? And it's that old age-old thing. If I'm not doing anything wrong, then it's fine to have information out there. But as the world becomes more complex, and I think as kind of the world becomes smaller digitally, like there's certain thing, I don't know what it is, but tomorrow something that we see as free and legal today might not be. Cannabis is a good example, right? We can see that being legalized across the world. Here it's not, but to be able to control those elements of your personality and your data as sort of, who knows what happens with governments and regulation around the world, it's going to become increasingly important, I think, to us.
Well, our data is our data.
Yeah.
I say stop giving it away freely, protect your privacy. If nothing else, in the future, data could be the most valuable thing in the world to corporates. So if you've given it away freely, you can't monetize it. So if nothing else, make sure you don't give it away freely, because people will pay for it soon.
Well,
And they already are.
They
already are. But then, I don't mean to go all Black Mirror on you, but, to give people... we live in a very trusting society.
Yeah, we do.
We don't really have a lot of reason to fear our government. We believe in our political, judicial, and financial systems. I'm currently living in the Philippines, which is at the absolute arse end of the transparency index for corruption. And they don't live in a trusting society. So to put it back into Australia, I mean, to give people an idea about how your data could be used against you. Obviously, I've talked about how we can use it for you, but what if, for example, you were, I'm thinking now about mixing blockchain with other technologies like Internet of Things and artificial intelligence, but what if you're a day late on your rent payment and you go to open your front door and your key doesn't work?
Yeah.
Because, your landlord's locked you out. They've used Internet of Things technology to be able to lock you out until you pay your rent. What if you haven't paid your credit card bill and you're 2 hours late, but you're on a flight? So then you land in another country and you can't use your credit card because it's been blocked by the credit card company because you haven't paid your bill. What if, your medical data is out there in the world and insurance companies can use that to raise your premiums? And that could be anything. Like, you go to the doctor with a sore knee and they're like, oh shit, let's put up their premiums for physio because, obviously, they're going to need it soon. So, I'm being a bit negative there, and I don't
really
like to take...
good real-world applications of what might happen.
Yeah. I don't like to go down negative paths, but I think it's just important for people to start thinking about, like I said before, both the pros and the cons. There's some wonderful things that can be done with personal and metadata.
Yep.
But there's also some frightening things. And at the end of the day, I just think you should be able to own and control your own data. You should have full control over it. No one else should be manipulating or exploiting that for or against you. It should be all within your hot little digital wallet.
100%. We're going to have to wrap up shortly. I think we could keep talking for ages.
I know, right?
It's just funny. I was reading your recap of January, and I noticed that you met Chris Weir. We do a lot of work with him. Very small world, right?
So Chris has actually been coming over and visiting us in the Philippines. So we have a team of 6 over there, which we're growing quite aggressively now. And the exec team has relocated to be there on the ground, which is an amazing adventure. But Chris actually reached out and he said, I was looking at outsourcing to the Philippines too. Who do you guys use? We go through a company called CloudStuff. They're incredible. Chris has just hired his first CloudStuff team member. They've been hanging out with us as well. And he comes over and hangs out for drinks all the time. So
awesome.
Maybe you should come too.
I will definitely be talking to you about CloudStuff. Yeah, small, very small world. I was literally talking to him before and I read that and I was like, oh, wow, it's a crazy, crazy small world we live in.
It is. It is.
So what's ahead for Intimate for the rest of the year? I know you just had your first transaction in January, end of January?
Yes, I'm super excited to say because we finished our token sale in June last year. We've been heads down, bums up for the last 5 or 6 months just building. Last week we soft launched our beta payment gateway.
Awesome.
In Seattle at the Women in Blockchain event.
Very exciting.
Yes. So we have processed our first consumer transactions now in both the US and Australia.
Okay.
People have been buying Smile Makers pleasure massages.
Yeah, I checked out the website.
Yeah, with either Intimate tokens or ETH. I've actually got a little bag of them here. I'm
cool.
just holding up my vibrators.
Very nice.
But yeah, you can actually go on, you can test out the beta gateway yourself if you want to. It's just cryptosmiles.store.
Okay, cryptosmiles.store, and we'll chuck that in the show notes as well.
Yeah. So please go and check it out. We'd love to hear people's feedback. Once the soft launch campaign is done, we'll be rolling out to all our other partners across the world. We've Currently got more than 45 across every single segment of adult.
Exciting.
From escorting and porn and cams through to sex education, health and therapy, wellness, Japanese love hotels, adult gaming, the whole kit and caboodle, pretty much anything you could think of.
Just quickly, on like, do you see the sort of stigma? Because everybody uses adult services. Everybody's looking at porn.
Not me.
Yeah, sure.
No.
And then so it's this weird morality play where people sort of go, yep. Oh no. Do you see that lessening? And is there anywhere in the world that, because I know you travel a lot, that you can see sort of, I suppose, a more sort of open attitude? Is Europe, for example? Or?
Yeah, Europe's pretty open.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it comes down to the individual.
Yeah.
Like everywhere I go, I find people who are extremely out and open and other people who are not. I guess I was having a chat to my friend Wesley Woods, who's a very famous porn star and cam performer, gay performer in LA. And he's very out and proud. Everyone knows him, loves him. He's a big superstar. But late last year, he was bashed in LA when he was walking home from a party.
Shit.
Yeah, and it was a really, really scary experience for him, and I think also humbled him, which he said, it just made me think about a lot of people in my community that don't want to come out about their identity.
Yeah,
and
that sucks.
And this is why. So whether people, how they feel within themselves or how they respond to this industry or their own sexuality, there's a pervasive stigma that still exists. And unless we can kind of reduce the barriers to participation in the industry and normalize this space, it's going to persist.
Well, hopefully we can start doing that. And I think some of the technology that you're working on is going to help to do that, hopefully. So looking forward to see where it goes.
Thank you. Me too.
Thanks so much for the chat. I'm glad we finally got to do it.
Yeah, finally.
Awesome. Cheers.
Cheers, guys. Thanks so much for listening. Did you enjoy that, Nick?
I did very much.
Thanks again to George and the whole Pause crew for having us out to facilitate some of these chats. It was great for me to be able to sit down with some really world-class speakers and get some of these insights while Nick was out there actually listening to the talks.
Yeah, I went to quite a few of those talks. They were all awesome.
If you want to hear more about the event, you can head to pausefest.com.au or find Pausefest on every social media out there, I assume.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And if you want to hear more of these podcasts, you can find us at Digital Noir, on Facebook, Instagram, or digitalnoir.com.au.